Wanted to follow up on that last point that Senator Scavello made. So as a member of the House, I work with several of my House colleagues on creating more accountability in our state budget by bringing these special funds into the public light. We have billions in taxpayer dollars that are not part of the general fund, right? We have over 218 special funds. I look at Florida's state budget, which is over $90 billion a year, and then look at ours, and we're currently around $33 billion. So Florida is not 3 times the size of Pennsylvania. So a lot of the funding for our state government is sort of tucked away in these special funds. So when House Republicans pushed to move those funds out of the shadows and into the light, the governor's response was that raiding those funds would mean cuts to programs. So the governor himself called that plan irresponsible. But now it seems that the governor's had a change of heart with regards to special funds. And based on your budget, the governor is suggesting that the final plan moves a lot of your department's funding using sort of it's a very convoluted approach that's not completely transparent, I believe, to taxpayers. I mean, those of us who sit here were even struggling to understand it. So, for example, on the governor's budget proposal line item worksheet, your general government operations line item drops 31%. So it looks to the average person that you're reducing spending at DCNR by about 31%. And there would be some people who'd probably applaud you for cutting overhead and expenses. But in reality, you're taking $740,000 from the oil and gas lease fund, $9.6 billion from the Keystone Fund, and actually overall it's a 5% increase in your funding from last year. But we don't really know that based on how you present the numbers in your budget. So it's a bit of a mirage. The cuts are not true. The spending is actually greater. Taxpayers don't know it from that vantage point, and that's, to me, disappointing. This is occurring all throughout your budget, and it's not really creating an honest picture of what our revenues and expenses are. So how can you explain what is being cut, what is growing under your budget in a way that the average taxpayer, the average person who's watching can understand? Because, I mean, if we look at your budget based on the publicly accessible line item tracking run, it looks like you're going to take a cut to the tune of about 30%. But with the maneuvering of all these special funds, it tells a very different story that people don't really know. So, you know, Senator Scavello's receiving all these emails. He said he was inundated that you've made millions of dollars worth of cuts, but that not in fact true. So can you walk me through this and all of those moving parts so that myself, my colleagues, most importantly, the taxpayers have a better understanding of it?
Sure. And then we do, just so you know, and I understand what you're saying, immediately upon our budget being published, we reached out to stakeholders and provided some more, solidified language that could follow and understand the various fund transfers. And these funds have always been in the public eye. In fact, they were very publicly derived. The Keystone Fund back in '93 was voted on by nearly 70% of citizens on a referendum as supporting it. And then the legislative vote supported it, and it's been very much in a very publicly facing program. Environmental Stewardship Fund under Governor Ridge, again, had a very public face to it and enjoyed, I think, about the same thing.
And I certainly understand that they were created very publicly, but the problem is that the way we're utilizing that money and using it as a mechanism to transfer is not very public.
I understand
and you don't see that in the general government operations budget.
Right, exactly. You have to almost look at the special fund section and see the differences every year. Like, for instance, one real plus in this budget, the bond initiative from Environmental Stewardship Fund from Growing Gooder 2 was paid for by ESF, and that transfer ended, which gave us $20 million more under our budget, an Environmental Stewardship Fund. So that was a big plus in supporting our fund, whereas in the past it was just paying off the bond issue for Growing Greener 2. The issue you raised first about when some of the House Republican caucus asked us about the special fund and the balance that you can see on SAP. Those funds had already been announced as grants to communities and had been assigned to park and forest infrastructure projects. I don't remember what month that was first raised, but it was after the funds had already been committed. So,
so you're saying that none of the funds that you are touching through this,
this proposed budget, yeah. So this
proposed budget, none of those funds in any of those special funds have been committed to projects.
Correct. They have not yet been committed, so because it's not even a complete
budget. But
budget.
yet, at the same time, I'm told that you have over. I mean, you yourself said it, and I wrote it down here somewhere that you have over $1 billion worth of backlog
That's
of
correct.
projects.
That's correct.
But you're using your special funds that are intended, as you said, were voted on by the public for projects. You're using it for the general operations budget.
That's correct. Both are true, and that's why an initiative, Restore Pennsylvania, is really at the scale.
But we don't have the authority to do Restore Pennsylvania, correct? Right? Because from what I understand, it's going to require bonding and a tax that has yet to receive the approval of this General Assembly.
That's correct. It's out there as a proposal, as our budget.
So how does that relate back to your budget right now?
Right. So we as an agency, we lay out the budget we need to operate and serve the citizens on a year-by-year basis, and this is the budget that's been proposed. And the fund transfers to make that possible are part of this budget. Every year is different. It's something that's considered every year, given what's available. The governor's committed to no new tax revenues in this budget, so therefore, this is the governor's budget showing what's needed to make this budget work.
So at this point, it's a no tax budget that you're presenting.
Yeah, the governor's presenting.
And it's not a 31% reduction, it's actually an increase in spending.
It's actually a 2.6% increase. It's essentially cost to carry, but we have the new radios that we need for the P25 program are part of this. So if you take that out, then it seems about an even budget, cost to carry budget, for our agency.
I think that going forward, we all need to do a better job of making things clearer and more transparent so that it doesn't look like we're actually reducing spending when we're actually increasing spending.
Yeah,
so
that's certainly welcome.
I've exceeded my time. I thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, I'd welcome your thoughts on how to do that, yeah.